New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is pleased to present The Inclusive Church, Ideas and Resources for Leaders of Multicultural Ministries. The Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown. Tuesdays at 12 noon Mountain Time. Join Tracy and her guests as they go deep and share practical tips and resources you can use in your ministry. And now let's explore the Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown.
Hey, is anybody out there dancing with me to the music? Yeah, Inclusive Church. And I am Tracy Brown, just in case you have found yourself here for the very first time. Every Tuesday at noon Mountain Time, we talk about what does it mean to be inclusive in our spiritual communities and what are some things we can be thinking about. So I'm really glad that you are with me today or that you are watching this recording, because today we're going to focus in on a toolkit session. We are thinking about what is the bridge that you can use to be inclusive as you address all of the many holidays that are primarily in December. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before I do that, of course, I want to remind you that anytime I'm using the word church, I'm talking about the community of people who come together to learn about, teach about, practice, and integrate spiritual principle into their daily lives. And when I'm saying leader, I'm talking about everyone who serves, everyone who leads, not just someone with the title of minister. So, okay, Nita, you are bicycling into the time together. And I can see a few others of you are out there and watching. So feel free to put in the chat that you are watching. And all throughout this brief session today, feel free to put comments and questions in the chat or in the comments section, because I will be monitoring it today. Also, for those of you who are regular watchers of the program and you noticed that Tracy was gone for a couple of weeks, we had some technical challenges. I was going to do a show live from Egypt. I was in Egypt for a couple of weeks, and we couldn't get the technology to work. So I apologize for that, but we'll make up for it over the next few weeks with some interesting topics. So today, this idea of all of the holidays, kind of what joins them or what connects them or what common thread runs through them. I'm going to invite you to think about the word light, Light. Whether we're talking about Advent, Bodhi Day, Hanukkah, winter solstice, Christmas Eve, and to some degree, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, Kwanzaa. They all have this common thread or common relationship to the light. The one that might not be so obvious is Bodhi Day, but that is about the inner light, enlightenment, and sparking the light from within in terms of how you understand life and how you live life. So, as you are selecting holidays and holy days to celebrate or to integrate into your services and your activities, think about light. Now, one of the reasons this falls under the umbrella of being inclusive is because there are still many of our churches and centers and ministries that are telling the story of Christmas um, based on the nativity story without interpreting the nativity story from a new thought perspective and the symbolism of each of the characters, each of the elements of the nativity story. And even though I haven't really included Thanksgiving in this list of winter holidays, I'm surprised when I hear people continuing to tell the story of Thanksgiving in the U.S. being about the Pilgrims and the Indians and the friendliness there without giving any context to its to a foundation of the harvest festivals and the celebration of gratitude for having the harvest and knowing how to plant the crops and how to harvest them and bring them together, and the foundation of abundance and gratitude that was part of the Native American tradition co-opted by the colonists. And you don't have to tell the story in a way that people will see as political activism to connect to the actual spiritual foundation that was in place long before there were colonies and colonists. So that same thing is true for many, if not all, of the holidays or holy days that come up in December. So, for example, let's not take them in chronological order, but let's look at the winter solstice or Christmas. We could look at Christmas and lighting the Christmas tree and all of that in the context of earth-based religions, paganism, and earth-based traditions that then were co-opted by Christianity in order to send a different message. So if in our New Thought traditions, we say we are ancient wisdom and new thought, so go back before, don't just stop at 1600, 1700, 1800 in the US. Go back to the ancient traditions. And when you do that, and when all of us do that from the perspective of being inclusive and honoring diversity, what happens is you cannot help but honor diversity and recognize the contributions of many different groups, because the indigenous groups had traditions that we have built upon. So I'm not talking about simply being politically correct. I'm actually talking about being spiritually aligned with a longer history than just 200, 300 years ago. So, so that's really kind of the message for today. It is a toolkit day, which means I won't keep you more than about 30 or 35 minutes total. So let's look at some of these different holidays and holy days. So Advent. Many of you may be familiar with the Advent season and the process of looking at and preparing for the holy days by celebrating Advent. And sometimes people celebrate Advent or practice paying attention during Advent season on a very surface level, that level of every day you get a little gift. But you could actually, with Advent, you could choose to highlight a principle or a quotation every day during Advent that relates to the coming holidays, but intentionally choose scripture or quotations from a variety of sources so that you are able to honor the tradition of Advent and light the candle of Advent related to each day of Advent, but utilize wisdom from many different sources. Bodhi Day, I already mentioned, since that's related to recognizing and honoring Buddha. That alone gives you an opportunity to bring in a different tradition and a different perspective. And it allows you to look at the light, even if you choose to light a candle or not, that you are lighting the candle of the light within you. I light the candle of enlightenment within me and use some devotion or ritual. And please, 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 if you are going to use some devotion or ritual, then authenticate it by using Buddhist tradition or ritual or quotes from Buddhists who have written in contemporary times, whose writing speaks to the pathway to enlightenment. Hanukkah. So Hanukkah, of course, is one of the easiest to connect to light, since the whole foundation of Hanukkah is about oil that was perceived to only be enough to last one night, lasting for 7 nights. And so every day of lighting a Hanukkah candle, you are able to make another connection to the light and then link that to all of the other holidays and holy days during the month of December. Winter solstice is also a pretty easy one to connect to the light, but it comes from a very different tradition than Advent or Bodhi Day or Hanukkah. And so in recognizing winter solstice and recognizing the longest night of the year, which opens up into the increase of light daily, then you are able to absolutely connect in from an earth-based practice and earth-based sensibility and earth-based spirituality. So talk about winter solstice or weave into what you write about solstice that this is a tradition from an ancient or an old culture, and bring in the wisdom. you will have members or guests or people who are connected to your ministry in some way who have family members from old Europe and from pagan traditions who will resonate with and appreciate that you are not just talking about solstice as if it's some hot new age thing, and that you are honoring the tradition of the past. Christmas Eve often is connected with lighting the Christmas tree or Christmas candle lighting services or Christmas Eve candle lighting services and masses. And so, again, you have this connection that you can use throughout the month of light, but you also get to reach back or reach into different cultures that have used the Christmas tree or the Christmas nativity story for teaching some messages that we teach in New Thought today. I actually think one of my favorite talks, let me just think for a minute. Yeah. One of my favorite talks, I have to be careful when I say that, right? Because I've given a lot of talks, and any talk in any given moment might be one of my favorite talks was about this, and this. But one of my favorite talks of all time, like I would say in the top 10, was a talk that I gave specifically about the nativity story and the New Thought perspective, and taking each of the characters and each of the things that happen along the way and giving a New Thought perspective or metaphysical interpretation of what that could mean. What was the symbolism meaning beyond just the story or the character in that moment? And uh, and I used to do co-host a radio show with a friend, and the show was called Say Yes to Spirit. And both of us loved the nativity story so much that I think we did 3 shows. Like, we did one year and realized we couldn't get it all in, so we did the week before and the week after Christmas, talking about the nativity story. And then a couple years later, it's like, let's talk about that again because it's so rich. And in the third or fourth year that we were doing the show, we did it again. So how that, I just came back from Egypt. And so being in a place that has so much history of the ancient wisdom, right? Thousands of years before Christ and, or before Jesus. And then, in the periods after Jesus, before there was a Bible written, it's just always so fascinating to go back and say, oh, I read this in the Bible, but now I'm around people who actually that is a part of their history or a part of the history of the land they live in or the region they live in. And so this is a perfect time when we talk about diversity and inclusion and spirituality. It's a perfect time to acknowledge from an interfaith perspective different information. It's a perfect time to think about the light as the North Star and the guiding star or the guidance in our lives. You have a lot of opportunities with the nativity story and or with the Christmas tree and Christmas traditions of gift giving and generosity. And not only do people light up, but the light within in choosing and giving gifts. So there are all kinds of opportunities there for you to bring in different stories that are contemporary that might reflect different cultures. Christmas also gives you a great opportunity to talk about how Christmas is celebrated around the world or even in the US, because the US is composed or comprised of people from so many different cultures around the world. So don't miss the opportunity to focus in on how different cultural groups in your own community, what are their Christmas traditions that may be different from what you learned growing up? It's a great opportunity to say we have this common thing that we celebrate, and at the same time, there are some differentiations based on cultural norms and patterns. So don't miss that opportunity. Kwanzaa, of course, is another holiday or celebration that is over 7 days. It's celebrated over 7 consecutive days. And every day, a different principle is the focus, and every day, a candle is lit for that purpose. Um, it is so easy to take the 7 principles of Kwanzaa and connect them to metaphysical principles and beliefs. And so when you do that, you are again building a bridge from Swahili, from West African culture, from African American culture of Kwanzaa overall, and what is common in terms of new thought, in terms of metaphysics, in terms of your own ministry and spiritual community. And then, of course, we also have New Year's Eve. And a few years ago, someone was like, Tracy, New Year's Eve, that's not religious. Why are you talking about it? Well, if I'm weaving through this idea of the holidays and the holy days and light, it's so easy, or maybe I should say it the other way. It's hard to ignore that fireworks are very much a part of New Year's Eve. And that the light of the fireworks bringing in a new year, closing out one year and bringing in the new year is right in line with those thoughts and those concepts. Also, even though for many people, when they think about New Year's Eve, they are thinking about partying, they are thinking about drinking a lot and maybe too much. They are thinking about all of that. But as leaders in spiritual communities, we don't want to forget or miss the opportunity to recognize that we are also lighting the light within for the coming year, right? So, using light as a theme allows you to, of course, bring all of these together, which I love to do. And it also opens the door for you to go beyond your own cultural background, your own cultural comfort, and the stories that people may be very familiar with. It allows you to go beyond all of that if you make the choice to go a little bit deeper and look at what cultures laid the foundation for this and how did those cultures show up in our world today, and build that bridge. So I want to just remind you that when we say inclusive church, we are not just talking about race and the problems of discrimination. We are talking about how do we include people and their experiences in all kinds of cultural ways. It could be family traditions, it could be languages spoken, it could be sexual orientation, it could be age groups or generational differences, It can be people with disabilities or differing abilities. All of those things and so many more are a part of the inclusion puzzle. And my desire is that you will remember, as I try to remember, that everything that we are doing throughout the year gives us an opportunity to look at it from different perspectives and to include different perspectives than the ones that we're most familiar with. So I am going to give you the gift of time. I am going to keep us to 30 minutes today because it is a toolkit day. When I don't have a guest, I really try hard not to go longer than 35 minutes so that you can get some really good information, but I don't have to go on and on and on and talk about it for an hour because you will get tired of hearing my voice. I do want to give you a heads up that in the next little bit of time, in the month of December, be watching for the soft launch of my next book, I Still Turn to Prayer. Some of you may be familiar with the book I Turn to Prayer, which was published in 2014. And so I Still Turn to Prayer. Instead of doing a 10th anniversary edition and update to I Turn to Prayer, we've got an entirely new book of prayers that we're releasing in December as a way to honor and recognize the 10-year anniversary of I Turn to Prayer. So keep your eye out for information about I Still Turn to Prayer. You can order it. You'll be able to order it in December if you're looking for gifts or maybe just a gift for yourself. And then we'll do the official launch in mid-January with some extra prizes and surprises. So that's it for today on the Inclusive Church. I really hope that you will find a way to be inclusive, not only of different people attending your events, but how you even talk about every one of the holidays and the holy days that are so present for many of us during the month of December. My name is Tracy Brown. We're right here every Tuesday at 12 noon Mountain Time for the Inclusive Church on the New Thought Media Network.
Thanks for watching The Inclusive Church with Tracy Brown. Join us again next week at 12 noon Mountain Time.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.